My name is Nilanjan Chatterjee and today we have come with the third video of this series, that is the Amaravati School of Art. If you have missed our previous videos, please go and watch our previous videos on the Gandhara and Mathura School of Art, which is available in our YouTube channel. Okay. Today we are going to talk about the Amaravati School of Art. First of all, the historical context of the Amaravati School of Art. The first point is the pilgrimage center. Amaravati was a major Buddhist pilgrimage site and home to one of the most artistically advanced stupas of ancient India, blossoming under the Satavahana dynasty from 2nd century BCE to 3rd century CE and their successors in the southeastern Deccan. As we can see in the next slide, maritime connections, which is very important for understanding Amaravati School of Art. The syncretic nature of Amaravati art resulted from dynamic cultural and economic interactions through maritime trade with Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia and the Roman world, okay, creating a unique artistic tradition influenced by diverse culture. This is very important, okay. On one hand, Sri Lanka, which is located in the southern part of India. On the other hand, we have Hellenistic influence, Greco-Roman influence, which is a separate civilization altogether. All these influences made Amaravati School of Art very, very peculiar and interesting. The third point is diverse patronage, okay. The patronage of Amaravati art came from a diverse group: royalty, guilds, wealthy merchants and lay devotees. 4 completely different sections, classes of the society. Inscriptions record hundreds of donations, many by women and non-royal individuals. This is very important, supporting this vibrant artistic tradition. Now let's talk about the materials and techniques used in the Amaravati School of Art. First is white limestone. This is one of the peculiar features of the Amaravati School of Art. Amaravati sculptors worked primarily in white limestone, a material available locally in the Krishna river basin and ideal for intricate carvings and visual storytelling. So as we can see in this image, there are so many things that are said through the single panel, okay. There are actually multiple panels, but try to look at the image. It shows so many, it narrates so many stories very intricately, okay. Its plate, its pale tone enabled a refined aesthetic and created a striking contrast when painted or inlaid, okay. So this is the feature largely of the Amaravati School of Art. Linear plasticity. This is another very important point. The technique employed in Amaravati is often described as linear plasticity, a method that uses precise lines and surface modeling to suggest movement, rhythm and grace, prioritizing dynamic narrative representation, okay. Now the next point is the guild production. Artists at Amaravati were highly specialized and likely worked in guilds, each assigned to different sections of the stupa or monastic complex. Okay, evidence of unfinished sculptures and signature inscriptions reveal the production process and artisan identity. This is very important because in ancient period you never get to know about the artisan identity. But Amaravati School of Art, because of this complex nature of this school of art, of using plastic linearity, etc., you get to know about the artisan's identity. Now the stylistic characteristics of Amaravati School of Art, first of all, elegant fluidity, okay, graceful elongated figures in dynamic motion, okay. This is a combination of Southeast Asian, Indian and Greco-Roman art, okay, a milieu of all these cultural horizons, okay. Next is narrative complexity. Rich storytelling with multiple registers. Third is intricate detailing. As we saw in the previous image, there are intricate detailings, finely carved jewelry, hairstyles and garments. Okay. Now let's talk about iconography and symbolism in the Amaravati School of Art. Amaravati symbolism is rich and evocative. Interestingly, Buddha is often represented in aniconic form. Aniconic form means when you do not necessarily portray Buddha, rather you address Buddha through some other elements, through symbols like empty throne, Bodhi tree, stupa, dharma wheel and footprints. This is very important, okay? This is a very peculiar feature of the Amaravati School of Art. The panels emphasize communal devotion, cosmic events and royal patronage, reflecting an integrated worldview. Okay. The next point is narratives in Amaravati are more intimate and expressive. As we can see, this is a classical Amaravati depiction of Buddha, and this is another panel, classical panel of Amaravati School of Art. The portrayal of celestial beings, worshippers, musicians and dancers suggests both reverence and joy. Okay, you'll find all sorts of characters and figurines, and the dynamism of figures and symbolic layering reveal the sculptor's attempt to merge narrative on one hand, emotion and metaphysical ideas, a bigger philosophical picture, okay, framework. Now let's talk about the major archaeological sites of Amaravati. First site, that belongs to 2nd century BCE to 3rd century CE. Key discoveries: limestone panels with Jataka tales, Buddhist tales, stupa railings and inscriptions found from Amaravati. Second is Nagarjuna Konda, that is found around 2nd to 4th century CE, which has monasteries, viharas, reliefs from Brahmi inscriptions. And the third is Jaggaya Peta, okay, that is from 2nd century BCE. Early railings on stupa decorations from Satavahana period. Okay, the Amaravati stupa, originally over 50 meters in diameter, featured intricately carved limestone panels illustrating Jataka tales, events from Buddha's life and celestial beings. Many slabs were removed during British excavation and now housed in the British Museum and Government Museum of Chennai. Okay, and Archaeological Survey of India is also trying to protect the Amaravati panels. Now let's come to the religious context and artistic intent. Amaravati School of Art aligned more with the Theravada Buddhism in early phases, gradually incorporating Mahayana elements. The Buddha is often represented symbolically, indicating a doctrinal reluctance to anthropomorphize the enlightened one. There are different portrayals of Buddha in the three schools of art. On one hand, Gandhara anthropomorphized Buddha in a human figure. On the other hand, the Mathura School of Art tries to deify Buddha with some cosmic attributes, with some spiritual attributes. Here in Amaravati School of Art, there is no portrayal of Buddha at all. Okay, there are addressive portrayals of Buddha, like feet, like Bodhi tree, etc. So, narrative panels guide viewers through spiritual transformation by dramatizing moral lessons and cosmological truths. The act of donating a sculptural panel was seen as a meritorious deed, that is called punya. Okay. As we can see in this final slide, there is a comparative analysis of the three schools. If you have missed the previous videos, please go and watch or take a screenshot of this page. It will be very helpful because everything is summed up in a very specific way in this slide. Please take a screenshot. Here it is mentioned the features of different schools of art. On one hand, Gandhara, Mathura and Amaravati, geographical region, period of flourishing, religious influence, materials used, stylistic traits, Buddha representation, common themes, narrative techniques, visual motives, main patron groups, wider influence. Everything is mentioned in this slide. Please take a screenshot. I'm not repeating the same thing that I've already mentioned. Please take a screenshot of this slide. It will be very, very helpful.